Hello, today we're going to be jumping into Fallout 4. When you get started in Fallout 4, you'll be presented with a list of attributes, and it can be a little daunting deciding where to put it in, especially since it doesn't give you a great explanation. You can't really see ahead of time what it's going to affect. So today we're going to clear some of that up for you and kind of show you where you may want to put your points when first starting out. The great news is, no matter where you put your points at, eventually you can max all of them. Alright, 10 levels is max on these. Of course, you can do some tricks to increase your stats above 10, but that's going to be for a more advanced video. For these purposes, we're just going to kind of go into what you need to do to kind of get started. Now, depending on your playstyle, may depend on some of the stats you want to choose from, but for the most part, the best way to stat your character when starting out, this is just for surviving the very early beginning parts of the game, because like I said, eventually you're going to be able to put points all the way up, and you're going to take all the perks you want, so you're not going to have any issues late game. Alright, so let's go over what these stats are and what kind of points we may want to put into them. So strength, as it says, it affects how much you can carry and the damage your melee attacks. It'll also involve certain other things such as using power armor, big guns, melee weapons, and a few other things. But the main thing we're going to worry about early game for this is carry weight. So if you like to loot a lot like I do, you're going to want to put your strength at 6, because that's going to give you access to a perk that we will go over here in just a minute when we get into the perks. Right now, perception, what this is going to do, this is going to affect, according to this, it affects your weapon accuracy when you're in VATS, and trust me, if you want to use VATS as often as possible in this, because that's how you get critical hits. So by leveling up perception, you can increase your ability to land hits with your guns. Right, but for early game purposes, we probably won't want to go above 4 in perception just to save our points. But the reason we want to go into 4 is specifically for the locksmith perk, which we'll go over in a moment. Right, then endurance is a measure of your overall physical fitness. It affects how much health you have total and the action point drain from sprinting. So you have a thing in this game called VATS that lets you use action points. And so the more action points you have in it, the more attacks you can use while in VATS. But when you're sprinting, you drain your VATS really fast. Okay, your action points. Let's just say your action points really fast, even though VATS is what uses it. Anyway, so you drain your action points really fast when you're sprinting. So this can really help. And if you put it all the way up to 5, you'll be able to take a nice perk later called Aqua Person, which negates the radiation from water unless you breathe underwater. It's really nice. All right, but for now, we'll skip over this because we only have 13 points left. This won't be super important early game. This will be more like a kind of early to mid game kind of thing. All right, but charisma, while this stat doesn't do a whole lot because it mostly just affects dialogues in the game, which you're going to have a lot of dialogues at the very beginning of the game. So you could get some different choices in there. Later, it'll help you with shopkeepers. You don't really get a whole lot of access to shopkeepers early game, but it will help you with that. And what this is going to help with is a settlement setup, and you're going to do a lot of settlement setup right off the bat if you're following the quest line. If you're not following the quest line, you can skip over charisma for at the beginning at least. But it's kind of important for setting up settlements. So you're going to want to put your charisma at 6 if you're going to be dealing with setting up a lot of settlements so that you can connect them all. Right, but that's not necessarily needed in early game. It'll just deny you access to your workshop inventory at every location. You just have a separate inventory until you can get that up to 6. Right, so our intelligence. It's a measure of our overall mental acuity and affects the number of experience points earned. Intelligence is probably one of the most important stats early game because the higher this is, the faster you level up. Now, you could substitute intelligence with luck, and then there's a skill in luck that will proc every now and again and give you a bunch of extra XP, but in the end, intelligence is probably going to give you more overall XP. The one thing intelligence does do for us that we definitely want early game is going to be a skill that lets us hack. There are also several skills that we're going to want intelligence for. And so we're going to need our intelligence to at least 5 to use all of those skills. We can push it up to 4 for early game, and then we can level it up again later once we really get into the game to get access to the other skill. Because by the time we need that skill, we'll probably have at least a level, right? So go ahead and start with 4. If we have some points left over, we can go higher. Great. If not, that's okay too. But intelligence is definitely something you want high for leveling up fast, because the faster you level up, the more points you're going to gain to put in everything else. Agility is a measure of your overall finesse and reflexes. It affects the number of action points in bats and your ability to sneak. This has a lot of skills in it that involve sneaking and late game abilities. You definitely don't need agility early game. And sneaking doesn't work great in very many of Besetta's games, so I don't know that I would bother with that. I really like sneaking. Splinter Cell games are kind of my favorite type of games to play. And, you know, every time I try to play a Besetta game and sneak, that's my first playthrough, it's sneaking, never goes well. So I don't know that I would bother with that. And then luck is a measure of your general good fortune and affects the recharge rate of critical hits. The luck sounds like something you'd want to max right away. It sounds like something to be really great. It's not. It's another one of these. A lot of the perks in luck aren't necessary until you are further into the game. 1 point in luck is great because there's a perk that lets you get extra bottle caps, and you only need the 1 point in luck for that. But if you're going to go idiot savant instead of for experience instead of intelligence, you'll want to up your luck to I think 5. We'll go get into that when we get into perks in a minute. So you see, we have 10 points left. So where should we put those? Like I said earlier, Charisma 6 would be really good for connecting all our settlements together, so we could put 6 points there and we'd have 4 left over. But honestly, you're probably better off going all the way up to 9 points in intelligence. And if you're planning on going higher with intelligence than 10 points, you're trying to use those tricks later on, then you can go ahead and push it up to 10 points now, and then use those tricks to lower it and increase your intelligence higher later. But I would go to 9 for now. You can always add a level in here later. This gives you some options to play with it, right? So if you go to 9, there's an item in the game later you'll find that'll let you increase your intelligence by 1. There's a bobblehead. They're bobbleheads. They let you increase all your stats by 1. You'll find 1 for each stat throughout the game. So you don't need to go above 9 because you'll be able to get that 1 for your 10 points total. Again, unless you're going to overcap your intelligence. So let's say we put our intelligence to 10. We took some drugs in the game or some alcohol or something, whatever the game has that lowers our intelligence score, and lowered it real quick temporarily, and then grabbed one of those bobbleheads or used a special book to up our intelligence. It would put our intelligence to 11 and 12 respectively if we did both. It's not really that important to do that, but some min-maxers will want to do that. So that's why I'm telling you about it. But you can always start with 9 points, right? And then you can add more levels into it later if you decide you're going to go that route. So that leaves us with 5 points left. So we could put that into Charisma, and that's probably our best bet if we want to connect. If you're going to be worrying about settlements and connecting all your settlements together, and that way you have access to your inventory between all the settlements. If you're not super into the settlement part of the game, and you don't care about that, we can skip over Charisma for now, and we can go for Endurance, because you're going to be sprinting a lot at the beginning, and this is going to be super helpful. So your last 5 points should either go into Charisma or Endurance. The good news is, all your levels later, once you have these set like this, can go wherever you want them. At that point, it's not important because you'll have access to all of the skills you wanted access to for perk-wise for the early game. So, but after you get into the game and you're leveling up and you're trying to decide where your points should go after this, you've already got these points set up in a nice way. And so then you can just kind of look through all the perks and decide which ones you're really interested in, and then focus on just leveling up for those perks and not worry about increasing the stats you already have, because these stats are pretty much where you're going to need them for quite a while anyway. Now, I might even do something like this, where I do Endurance 3 and Charisma 4, and then spend a couple of my levels in the game that I'm going to get later into Charisma, so that I at least start with the ability to sprint a little bit farther and more often.
Wonderful. That's everything. Just gonna walk this over to the vault.